The rope in your hands is already damp with salt, its fibers swollen from the night air, and you have long since stopped noticing the faint sting it leaves across your palms. The ship has been at sea for days now, perhaps longer than you have bothered to count, and the rhythm of her movement has settled into your bones. She does not pitch so much as breathe, a slow and steady inhalation beneath your boots, as though the ocean itself were lending her a pulse. Dawn has not yet broken fully. A pale wash of silver rests along the horizon, where sea and sky remain indistinguishable in the quiet half-light. Somewhere forward, a gull calls once and then again, distant and solitary. You feel the soft roll beneath your feet, as naturally as you feel your own breath, adjusting your balance without thought. You are a junior rating, one among many, your name stitched neatly above your pocket, your uniform pressed and precise even at this early hour. The collar rests stiff against your neck, the fabric smelling faintly of starch and metal. There is comfort in its orderliness. On this vessel, everything has its place. Every tool is secured, every surface polished, every instruction given and received within a structure older than memory. The Navy does not rush to introduce itself to you. It simply assumes you will fall into its cadence. You already have. There is a quiet hierarchy here, not shouted but understood. You sense it in the way footsteps alter their tempo when a senior rating approaches, in the subtle straightening of backs when a petty officer passes by. No one explains it in grand terms. It is absorbed, like the salt air itself, through repetition and observation. As a junior rating, you are at the foundation of this structure. The deck beneath you is both literal and symbolic. It gleams with careful scrubbing, wooden planks smoothed by generations of hands before yours. When the first light of morning finally touches it, the brass fittings glow softly, reflecting the pale sun in muted warmth. You run through your assigned duties with steady concentration. There is no drama in them, only repetition, and within repetition, refinement. Lines are coiled just so, surfaces wiped free of the ocean's residue, equipment checked not once, but twice. The tasks may seem small when viewed from afar, but here they are the bedrock of order. The sea respects diligence. Beneath the deck, the quiet hum of engines resonates like a distant heartbeat. You feel it through the soles of your boots as you descend a narrow ladder into the dimness below. Lantern light casts golden halos against steel bulkheads, illuminating rivets and pipes that stretch like the veins of some vast metallic creature. The air is warmer here, scented faintly with oil and warm metal, yet still touched by the salt that seems to follow you everywhere. You are learning not merely how to perform your duties, but how to exist within a hierarchy shaped by centuries. Orders are given in measured tones, responses are crisp and economical. Aye, understood. Very good. There is reassurance in the predictability of it all. No one expects you to command, not yet. Your responsibility is simpler, though no less important, to observe, to listen, to absorb. At mess, you sit among others who share your rank, boots lined neatly beneath the bench, mugs cradled between steady hands. Conversation is low and unhurried. There is laughter sometimes, soft, unassuming, but never loud enough to fracture the calm discipline that wraps around the ship like a second hull. You notice how senior ratings carry themselves. They move with an economy of motion that speaks of long familiarity. They do not rush. They do not hesitate. When they speak, it is with the confidence of repetition, as though they have walked these decks 1,000 times beneath every conceivable sky. You hope, quietly, that one day you will move in that same manner. The morning watch passes into afternoon. The sea remains calm, a wide expanse of gray-blue silk, stretching toward a horizon that never seems nearer. You take your position along the rail, not standing idly, but attentive, scanning the water as instructed. The wind presses gently against your face, carrying the taste of brine. It dries your lips, tangles your thoughts into something simpler. At sea, complexity diminishes. There are no city sounds here, no traffic or hurried crowds. Only the steady lap of waves against the hull and the occasional cry of distant birds. The world feels reduced to essentials: sky, water, steel, wood, and the disciplined chain of command that binds everyone together. You begin to understand that hierarchy is not about dominance, it is about continuity. The Royal Navy has existed longer than any one sailor, longer than any single vessel. You are part of something that stretches backward across centuries, through tall ships and steam engines, through polished sextants and brass compasses, through men and women who once stood exactly where you now stand, watching the same unbroken horizon. In the late afternoon, as the light softens to amber, you are tasked with assisting a leading hand. He does not speak unnecessarily. His instructions are precise, delivered without embellishment. You listen carefully, mirroring his movements, adjusting when corrected. There is no embarrassment in correction. It is expected. It is part of the shaping. Again, he says quietly. You coil the rope once more, fingers learning the exact tension required. Not too loose, not too tight. He nods once. Approval here is subtle, but deeply felt. As evening approaches, the sky dims into layers of lavender and steel. The temperature drops slightly, and you are grateful for the weight of your jacket. Lanterns flicker to life along passageways, their glow warm against the encroaching dusk. The ship seems to exhale as night settles, her movements becoming more pronounced against the dark water. You take your turn on night watch. There is something profoundly humbling about standing beneath an open sky at sea. The stars appear sharper here, unchallenged by city light. They scatter across the firmament like fragments of glass, ancient and unwavering. You rest your hands lightly along the rail, feeling the cool metal beneath your fingers. In the distance, the horizon has vanished entirely, swallowed by darkness. There is only the gentle rise and fall, the persistent whisper of water against steel. In these moments, rank feels both immense and invisible. You are the most junior among many, yet you are entrusted with vigilance. Your presence matters. Your awareness contributes to the safety and continuity of the vessel. It is a quiet responsibility, but it is real. You think of the generations who have stood watch before you. The same stars overhead, the same steady breath of the sea, the same disciplined stillness. There is comfort in knowing that you are not alone in time. Later, when you return to your berth, the cabin is dim and orderly, boots aligned, kits stowed with care. The faint hum of machinery continues through the bulkhead, a lullaby of steel in motion. You lie back, feeling the ship's subtle sway beneath you. Your muscles ache faintly, not from strain but from adjustment, from learning to belong. Being a junior rating is not about grandeur, it is about foundation. You are learning the language of the sea, not spoken but felt. You are learning the structure of command, not imposed but inherited. You are learning that discipline is not severity, but steadiness. That hierarchy is not weight, but support. Outside, beyond the steel walls, the ocean stretches without end. Inside, within the quiet hum of the vessel, you begin to find your rhythm. Tomorrow will bring the same duties, the same careful coiling of rope, the same polished brass and measured footsteps, the same subtle corrections and understated nods of approval. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, you will grow. For now, you rest. The ship carries you forward through the dark, her bow parting the water with patient resolve. The moon rises unseen beyond the bulkhead, casting silver light across the deck above. Somewhere, another sailor stands watch. Somewhere, an officer reviews charts beneath lamplight. Somewhere, the chain of command continues its quiet work. And you, at the foundation of it all, sleep with the steady roll of the sea beneath you, already becoming part of something vast, disciplined, and enduring. The rope feels different in your hands now. Not because it has changed, but because you have. The morning mist lingers low across the water, a pale veil drifting just above the surface of the sea. The ship moves through it with composed assurance, her bow parting the haze as gently as one might draw back a curtain. You stand near the forward hatchway, observing rather than merely performing, the cool air brushing your face with quiet familiarity. Your rate badge bears new distinction. A leading hand now. The change was not accompanied by ceremony at sea, only an announcement, a brief acknowledgement, and the subtle recalibration of expectations. You still rise before dawn. You still feel the steady vibration of engines beneath your boots. Yet something within the rhythm has shifted. You are no longer solely responsible for your own tasks. Others glance toward you now, seeking confirmation without asking for it. It is a quiet transformation. You notice it first in small things. A junior rating coils a line, hesitates, and looks up. You step closer, not to correct sharply, but to adjust the tension with your fingers, demonstrating rather than declaring. Like this, you say softly. The lesson passes from your hands to theirs. Leadership at this level is neither grand nor loud. It is patient. It is steady. It is woven into the daily fabric of maintenance and order. You check equipment not because you distrust your sailors, but because diligence is inherited responsibility. The deck must gleam. The fittings must shine. The routine must remain intact. The Royal Navy does not rise and fall on singular gestures. It endures through consistency. By mid-morning, the mist has lifted, revealing a horizon washed in pale gray. The sea remains calm, its surface broken only by the ship's measured wake trailing behind like a ribbon of silver. Gulls circle at a respectful distance, their calls intermittent, almost contemplative. You walk the length of the deck, boots striking wood in a cadence that echoes faintly against steel bulkheads. There is no hurry in your pace, yet no idle wandering. You are aware of posture, of uniform, of bearing. The sailors observe you more than they once did. You remember doing the same. As a leading hand, your technical knowledge has deepened. You understand not only what must be done, but why. The quiet hum of systems below deck is no longer abstract noise. It is an orchestration you can interpret. The engine's rhythm speaks of balance and calibration. The subtle vibration beneath your feet reveals stability. You find a certain satisfaction in this comprehension. Below deck, lantern light flickers along narrow corridors. You supervise a maintenance detail, inspecting fittings with attentive eyes. A junior rating presents a completed task, standing slightly straighter in your presence. You nod once. Well done. The words are measured, given sparingly. Praise here is deliberate and thus meaningful. As the day advances, you report to a petty officer for instruction. He stands with composed authority, his uniform immaculate, his expression neither stern nor indulgent. His experience radiates not through volume, but through steadiness. When he speaks, his tone is low and assured. You'll oversee the afternoon detail, he tells you. You incline your head in acknowledgement. Aye. Responsibility expands gently, like the tide rising without announcement. The afternoon light warms the deck to honeyed tones. You assign tasks carefully, ensuring each sailor understands their role. There is no need for raised voices. You have learned that clarity reduces confusion far more effectively than volume ever could. You begin to see the Navy as a living structure, layered and interdependent. The junior ratings form its foundation. Leading hands reinforce its framework. Petty officers ensure cohesion. Above them, officers chart the wider course. Every rank supports the next. The hierarchy feels less like a ladder now, and more like a carefully balanced architecture. As evening nears, the sea darkens to deeper blue. A slight swell passes beneath the hull, gentle enough to require only subtle adjustment in your stance. You pause at the rail, observing the horizon. In the distance, clouds gather in soft formations, tinged with amber by the lowering sun. A junior sailor approaches. "Leading hand," he begins, tentative but respectful. You turn slightly, offering full attention. He asks a question about tomorrow's duty rotation. You answer without impatience, explaining not only the schedule but the reasoning behind it. His expression shifts from uncertainty to comprehension. You recognize yourself in that look. Later, in the petty officers' mess, the atmosphere is subdued and dignified. The lighting is warmer here, the benches polished smooth by years of service. Conversation flows at a measured pace. There is a subtle distinction in seating, in posture, in the rhythm of dialogue. The petty officers carry themselves with composed assurance. You aspire quietly to that bearing. Promotion to petty officer does not arrive with fanfare, but when it does, it alters the air around you. The badge changes. The responsibilities deepen. You stand now as a petty officer, the bridge between the ratings and the senior enlisted ranks. Sailors no longer glance for confirmation. They await instruction. Your word carries weight, not because it is forceful, but because it represents experience. At dawn, you walk the deck before most others have stirred. The sea is glassy and reflective, mirroring a sky brushed with early pink. The ship hums steadily beneath you. You inhale the crisp, salt air, feeling both the solitude and the significance of your position. You oversee divisions with calm efficiency. Briefings are concise, expectations clear, corrections delivered without humiliation. You have learned that authority need not bruise to be effective. A junior rating struggles with a task he has performed many times before. Instead of rebuke, you stand beside him, guiding his hands as once someone guided yours. There is a lineage to this instruction, a passing of skill through touch and repetition. The Royal Navy sustains itself through such continuity. In the afternoon, you are called to consult with a sub-lieutenant. The conversation is professional and balanced. You provide insights from the deck, the lived reality of routines and equipment. He listens carefully. There is mutual respect in this exchange. You understand now that hierarchy does not imply distance. It implies structure. As night descends, lanterns glow along passageways once more. You make your final rounds, ensuring all is secure. The ship settles into its nocturnal rhythm, the hum of engines slightly more pronounced in the stillness. You pause at the stern, gazing at the wake unfurling behind the vessel. It stretches into darkness, illuminated faintly by moonlight. Each ripple reflects the path already traveled, unrecoverable yet formative. Being a petty officer is much like this wake. You carry forward the influence of those before you, shaping the water behind in subtle patterns that others will follow. Your presence affects the vessel's continuity. Your decisions ripple outward, touching routines and morale alike. There is no grand stage here, no spotlight, only duty performed steadily. You return to your cabin, the air faintly scented with polished wood and pressed fabric. Your uniform hangs neatly, insignia catching the lantern's glow. You sit for a moment before resting, aware of the responsibility that now rests upon your shoulders. It does not feel heavy. It feels earned. Outside, the sea continues its endless conversation with the hull. The sky remains vast and patient. Somewhere above, an officer studies charts. Somewhere below, a sailor completes his final check. And you, positioned between instruction and execution, between guidance and obedience, settle into the quiet understanding that leadership has begun to take root within you, not as command, but as stewardship. The sea is darker before dawn than it ever is at night. There is a particular stillness in that hour when even the wind seems to pause, when the horizon is not yet a line but a suggestion, and the ship moves forward through a world of muted blue and charcoal gray. You are already awake, already dressed, your boots laced with deliberate care. The fabric on your sleeve bears new distinction once more. Chief Petty Officer. The title rests not as an ornament, but as a quiet confirmation of time served, lessons absorbed, steadiness proven. You feel no dramatic shift within yourself, only a deepening, a widening of perspective. The decks you once scrubbed, the lines you once coiled under supervision, now fall within your broader oversight. You walk the passageway before first light, lanterns casting soft halos along polished brass and steel. Sailors you once guided as a leading hand now look to you with greater deference. Their greetings are crisp, respectful. "Morning, Chief." You incline your head gently. There is warmth in the acknowledgement, but it is tempered by composure. Familiarity exists, yet it never erodes discipline. That balance, humanity without looseness, is something you have cultivated slowly. On the upper deck, the air is cool and salt-laden. A thin mist clings to the water, and the ship's bow cuts through it with quiet assurance. You pause near the rail, hands clasped loosely behind your back. The sea rolls in long, unhurried swells, lifting and lowering the vessel with patient rhythm. At this rank, you are no longer immersed solely in tasks. You oversee their orchestration. A junior rating hurries past, slightly flustered by the morning's responsibilities. You observe without immediate intervention. You have learned that growth requires room. Only when necessary do you step forward. "Steady yourself," you say calmly. He adjusts his pace, shoulders settling. "Yes, Chief." The correction is gentle, but firm. It carries weight not because of volume, but because of experience behind it. Experience is the true currency of a Chief Petty Officer. You have known calm seas and heavy ones. You have served under officers of varying temperaments. You have witnessed minor errors corrected and small triumphs achieved through patience. None of it was dramatic. All of it was formative. Below deck, the hum of machinery reverberates steadily. You move through compartments with measured assurance, inspecting not only equipment but atmosphere. Morale reveals itself in small details: the way sailors speak to one another, the care with which tasks are completed, the posture held during routine checks. You sense shifts before they are spoken. A petty officer approaches with a question regarding duty rotations. You listen fully before responding. There is no haste in your decision. You consider the individuals involved, their strengths, their recent workload. Leadership at this level is not about issuing directives swiftly. It is about issuing them wisely. "We'll adjust the schedule slightly," you say at last. "Ensure fairness. Keep the balance." "Aye, Chief." The chain of command flows through you now, not simply to you. Midday light filters through the scuttle, casting a pale glow across the wardroom entrance. An officer greets you with professional courtesy. The relationship between commissioned and senior enlisted ranks carries a particular nuance: mutual reliance, subtle respect. You provide insight drawn from long familiarity with the deck and its rhythms. The officer listens attentively. Decisions made at higher levels often rest upon the grounded understanding you offer. You are the bridge. In the afternoon, as the sky brightens and the sea reflects its muted shimmer, you gather a small group of junior ratings for instruction. They stand attentively, boots aligned, uniforms pressed. You speak without theatrical flourish. This vessel runs on precision. You begin quietly. Precision is not about perfection. It is about consistency. Their eyes remain fixed upon you. You demonstrate a technical procedure, your hands steady, movements economical. When one falters, you correct him with patience. You remember vividly the uncertainty of your own early days, the quiet desire not to disappoint. That memory guides your tone. As the sun lowers, casting warm amber across the deck, you feel the ship's gentle sway more deeply than ever before. Years at sea have attuned you to her subtle language. A slight change in vibration suggests weather ahead. A shift in wind pressure foretells adjustments to come. You read these signs instinctively. When promotion to warrant officer arrives, it does so with quiet gravity. There is ceremony this time, brief, dignified. The badge placed upon your uniform carries centuries of lineage. It signifies not only seniority but mastery. Few rise to this position. Fewer still sustain it with humility. You stand differently now, not taller, but steadier. The early morning mist returns, as if to mark the transition. You walk the deck alone before sunrise, feeling the wood beneath your boots, polished, smooth by generations before you. The sea stretches endlessly outward, gray merging with gray. As a warrant officer, you are the custodian of standards. Officers consult you not merely for information, but for judgment. Junior sailors view you with a mixture of respect and quiet awe. Your words carry the accumulated weight of decades. You do not wield that weight carelessly. A subtle issue arises in the engine room. Nothing urgent, nothing dramatic, merely a deviation in sound. You descend calmly, lantern light flickering against the metal walls. The engineers stand attentive as you listen. You close your eyes briefly, attuning yourself to the hum. There. A faint irregularity. You confer quietly, suggesting measured adjustments. The correction is made without alarm, without raised voices. The rhythm returns to its steady cadence. The sea outside remains calm. Later, you sit in your modest cabin, reviewing reports beneath the warm glow of lamplight. The paper smells faintly of ink and salt. Your pen moves with deliberate strokes. Administrative tasks may seem distant from the open deck, yet they are equally essential. Order is maintained not only through physical diligence, but through careful record and communication. You reflect, briefly, on the journey from junior rating to this point. There were no dramatic leaps, only steady progression. Repetition, correction, growth. The Royal Navy does not elevate swiftly. It shapes gradually. At dusk, you stand once more along the rail. The sky has deepened into indigo, the first stars emerging like quiet witnesses. The ship's wake trails behind in silver threads, dissolving into darkness. A young sailor approaches, hesitant but earnest. "Sir, Chief, Warrant Officer," he begins, unsure of the proper form. You offer a faint, reassuring smile. "Speak plainly." He asks about advancement, about what it requires. You consider your answer carefully. "It requires patience," you say at last. "Skill, certainly. Discipline, always. But above all, patience. The sea does not rush. Neither does the Navy." He nods thoughtfully. As he departs, you remain at the rail, watching the horizon fade entirely into night. The moon rises, casting a path of silver across the water. The ship glides forward along that path, unwavering. You understand now that rank is less about ascent and more about guardianship. As Chief Petty Officer, you upheld standards. As Warrant Officer, you embody them. The vessel rests within a broader fleet, the fleet within a broader institution. Yet here on this deck, beneath this vast sky, your duty is singular and profound: to preserve continuity, to ensure that the discipline you inherited remains intact for those who will follow. The engines hum steadily below. Lanterns glow softly in passageways. Sailors settle into their berths, trusting the structure that surrounds them. And you, seasoned by years and tempered by salt air, stand quietly at the heart of that structure, steady as the tide, constant as the stars overhead. The chart table is cool beneath your fingertips, its polished surface faintly scented with wax and salt carried in from the open hatch. A brass lamp casts a steady circle of amber light across the paper, illuminating coastlines drawn with careful precision, depth markings etched in deliberate ink. Outside the bridge windows, the sea moves in long, unhurried swells, reflecting a sky the color of softened pewter. You have been awake for some time. The ship has been underway for weeks, and the rhythm of her passage has become so familiar that even your thoughts seem to rise and fall with the tide. Yet something has shifted again, not in the motion of the vessel, but in the nature of your responsibility. Sub-Lieutenant. The commission rests quietly within your uniform, stitched insignia catching the lamplight with understated gleam. The fabric is pressed immaculately, the lines of it precise. There is ceremony in the cut of an officer's attire, but there is also expectation. An expectation that you will carry authority with composure rather than display. You stand not at the rail now, but on the bridge. The windows stretch wide before you, framing an uninterrupted horizon. The early morning mist clings to the water, thin and luminous. A faint gull's call drifts through the open air, softened by distance. The helmsman maintains a steady course, hands firm upon the wheel. You observe quietly, absorbing not only the view, but the weight of oversight. As a junior officer, you are entrusted with navigation, watchkeeping, operational continuity. Yet none of it feels theatrical. The sea does not demand drama, it demands steadiness. "Course holding steady, sir," the helmsman says. You incline your head. "Very good." Your voice is measured, neither sharp nor overly warm. Authority, you are learning, is not volume. It is clarity. The deck below glistens faintly from the night's condensation. Sailors move with purposeful efficiency, their duties unfolding beneath your supervision. You recognize faces. Some you once guided as a senior rating. Now the dynamic has altered. Respect remains, but the angle has shifted. You are responsible not merely for tasks, but for decisions. You remember the warrant officer's words about patience. They linger in your thoughts as you study the compass, the chart, the subtle variations of wind. Formal authority has begun. It feels both familiar and entirely new. In the wardroom, the atmosphere carries a different cadence than the mess decks you once shared. Conversation is courteous, reflective. Silverware rests neatly aligned. Uniforms hang with careful symmetry. There is tradition here, not ostentatious but deeply rooted. Portraits of past captains line the bulkheads, their expressions composed, their gazes directed toward horizons long past. You sense their presence as continuity rather than pressure. Mid-morning, you conduct your watch with deliberate attention. You note minor shifts in barometric pressure, subtle changes in current. The sea speaks softly through instruments and observation. You respond accordingly, issuing small adjustments with calm assurance. Alter course 2 degrees to port. Aye, sir. The helm responds smoothly. The vessel obeys. There is something profoundly humbling about commanding motion without spectacle. The sea remains vast and indifferent, yet the ship's trajectory bends gently at your instruction. In quieter moments, you step onto the wing of the bridge, letting the salt air brush against your face. The wind carries a cool sharpness, lifting the edges of your thoughts. Below, you see a leading hand instructing a junior rating in line maintenance. The scene is familiar, almost nostalgic. Hierarchy reveals itself as a continuous circle. By afternoon, the sky clears to a pale blue, streaked lightly with cloud. Sunlight glints off polished brass along the deck, casting small reflections like scattered coins. The ship's wake stretches behind in a long, luminous ribbon. You are called to consult with the executive officer regarding routine operations. The discussion is composed, grounded in practicality rather than flourish. You provide your observations succinctly, aware that brevity reflects confidence. Noted, the executive officer replies. There is reassurance in that acknowledgement. As days pass, you grow more comfortable within the officer's responsibilities. The logbook becomes a quiet companion, its entries marking time with disciplined regularity. Each notation is deliberate, each signature an affirmation of accountability. At night, when your watch coincides with the deep hours, the sea transforms into an expanse of silver black under the moon. The bridge lights dim to preserve visibility beyond the glass. Stars scatter across the sky with crystalline clarity. You stand at the center of this vast stillness, issuing commands in tones scarcely louder than the wind. Maintain present heading. Aye, sir. The words dissolve into the night, absorbed by the endless water. Promotion to lieutenant arrives not with thunder, but with quiet confirmation. Your experience has broadened, your judgment tested gently by time and repetition. As lieutenant, your scope widens further. You oversee broader operations, mentor newly commissioned sub-lieutenants, liaise more frequently with senior officers. You find that humility remains your most reliable compass. During a morning inspection, you walk the deck alongside a chief petty officer. You exchange few words, yet the understanding between you is seamless. You rely upon his experience, he respects your authority. It is not competition. It is collaboration shaped by tradition. The sea remains constant. In the navigation room, charts spread across the table once more. You trace routes with a steady finger, calculating distance and time with practiced precision. Outside, the engines hum below, their rhythm unwavering. You are aware that countless systems operate beneath your oversight, each one essential to continuity. A junior officer approaches with a question. You listen attentively, answering not only the immediate query, but offering context drawn from your own early uncertainties. You remember standing where he now stands, earnest, slightly apprehensive, eager to fulfill expectations. Leadership, you are discovering, is as much about reassurance as direction. Late afternoon light bathes the ship in amber. The sea reflects it like burnished glass. You pause near the rail, hands resting lightly upon the cool metal. The horizon stretches outward, unchanged by rank or title. You contemplate the nature of command. It is not dominion over others, it is stewardship of trust. The sailors below perform their duties with confidence, knowing that structure guides them. The senior officers above you rely upon your vigilance. The ship herself responds to measured instruction. At dusk, lanterns flicker to life along passageways. The wardroom quiets. You sit at your desk, reviewing reports beneath soft illumination. The gentle roll of the vessel is almost imperceptible now, so fully has it become part of your equilibrium. You reflect upon the path from junior rating to lieutenant, The steps were steady, never rushed, each rank layered upon the last, building understanding from the deck upward. You carry within you the memory of coiled ropes, polished fittings, patient corrections. Those experiences temper your decisions, grounding authority and empathy. Outside, the moon casts a silver path across the water once more. Somewhere forward, a lookout maintains watch. Somewhere aft, a warrant officer reviews maintenance schedules. The structure continues. You rise from your desk and step briefly onto the darkened deck. The night air is cool, carrying the faintest scent of brine and engine oil. The ship glides forward with composed assurance, her wake dissolving quietly into the Black Sea. As a lieutenant, you are entrusted with direction, yet you remain part of a greater continuum, one that began long before your first commission and will endure long after your final salute. You stand beneath the open sky, breathing in the vast stillness, feeling both the weight and the grace of measured command. The sea is a deeper blue at this latitude, though you would not remark upon it aloud. You notice such things quietly now, as you stand within the captain's day cabin before sunrise, one hand resting lightly upon the edge of a broad wooden desk, polished to a muted sheen. The glass of the stern windows reflects the faintest silver hint of approaching dawn. The ship moves with patient assurance, her engines humming in a tone you know as intimately as your own breathing. Commander. Soon after, Captain. The titles arrived as the tide does, inevitable, unhurried, reshaping the shoreline of your responsibilities without spectacle. You adjust the cuffs of your uniform, the heavier braid upon your sleeve catching the soft lamplight. The weight of it is not physical, it is cumulative. Years of deck watches, decisions made in measured tones, guidance offered without display. Now the vessel herself rests within your stewardship. When you step onto the bridge, conversation stills almost imperceptibly. Not from fear nor stiffness, but from awareness. The crew feels the presence of command before you speak. You acknowledge the officer of the watch with a nod. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Course steady. You move to the center window. The horizon stretches wide and pale, the sky just beginning to soften with hints of rose and pearl. The sea rolls gently, lifting the bow in slow, dignified motion. A thin line of wake trails astern, marking passage without urgency. As commander, you first learned to hold the broader picture in your mind at all times. No longer concerned with a single department, you began to sense the ship as an integrated whole. Navigation, engineering, supply, morale, all threads woven together. As captain, that integration becomes instinct. Every report crosses your desk. Every routine inspection reflects your standards. Every subtle shift in atmosphere within the ship's company resonates within your awareness. Yet you do not interfere unnecessarily. Measured authority is restraint in practice. Mid-morning light brightens the decks, revealing sailors moving with practiced rhythm. A chief petty officer supervises maintenance near the bow. A lieutenant confers quietly with the navigator. You observe without intrusion, trusting the hierarchy you have helped to shape. Trust is the most delicate instrument in command. In your cabin, charts lie carefully arranged across the table. A faint scent of ink and sea air lingers. You review projected routes with deliberate calm, fingertips tracing lines that cross open expanses of blue. Decisions at this level are rarely dramatic. They are incremental, cumulative. You alter a course by a degree or two, accounting for forecasted weather patterns. You adjust schedules to balance efficiency with endurance. You ensure that discipline remains firm but humane. The ship reflects your temperament. If you are composed, she feels composed. At luncheon in the wardroom, conversation carries a respectful cadence. Junior officers glance toward you occasionally, measuring tone, absorbing example. You do not dominate discussion. Instead, you guide it gently when needed, allowing others space to develop their own command voices. You remember vividly the first time you stood watch as a sub-lieutenant, uncertain yet resolute. That memory tempers your expectations. In the afternoon, you conduct rounds along the deck. The wooden planks are warm beneath your shoes, brass fittings gleaming softly under filtered sunlight. The sea breathes against the hull in slow, rhythmic sighs. A young sailor straightens as you approach. "At ease," you say quietly. He relaxes, though posture remains disciplined. You exchange a few measured words, nothing extravagant, simply acknowledgement of diligence. Such moments ripple outward. Morale does not flourish through grand gestures, but through consistent recognition. As commander, you once balanced departmental oversight with executive responsibility. As captain, the balance shifts again. The vessel's spirit, its cohesion, its adherence to tradition, all fall within your guardianship. Evenings bring reflection. You stand alone upon the quarterdeck as dusk gathers in shades of lavender and indigo. Lanterns flicker softly along passageways, casting warm light against steel. The horizon blurs into a seamless gradient where sea meets sky. The wake behind glows faintly under the first rise of the moon. You think not of destinations, but of continuity. Centuries of captains have stood in similar twilight, feeling the subtle sway beneath their feet, hearing the same quiet conversation between hull and water. The rank of captain carries not grandeur, but inheritance. Inheritance of discipline, inheritance of restraint, inheritance of steady leadership in calm seas and unsettled ones alike. Later, in the stillness of your cabin, you review reports by lamplight. The soft hum of engines continues through the deck plates. A faint creak of timber reminds you that the ship is never entirely still. You consider the officers beneath your command. Each is shaping their own understanding of authority. Your role is not to overshadow them, but to provide structure within which they may grow. The Royal Navy is sustained not by singular figures, but by cultivated succession. A knock at your door. Enter. The executive officer steps in, offering a concise update. You listen attentively, asking a clarifying question or two. There is no tension, only professional rhythm. When he departs, the matter is settled, the course maintained. You rise and step once more onto the bridge before retiring. Night has fully descended now. The sea is an expanse of deep silver, the stars reflected faintly upon its surface. The officer of the watch stands attentive. "All in order, sir." "Very good." You remain for a moment longer, hands clasped loosely behind your back. The weight of command rests within you, but it does not press. It aligns. As captain, you have learned that authority is most effective when it is quiet. Orders delivered calmly carry farther than those shouted. Standards upheld consistently require fewer reminders. The ship responds to steadiness. When at last you return to your cabin, the lantern casts a gentle pool of light across the desk. You remove your cap, placing it precisely upon its stand. Outside, the vessel continues forward, cutting a smooth path through the darkened sea. Sleep comes not as escape, but as interlude. Tomorrow will bring new reports, minor adjustments, quiet conversations with officers and ratings alike. The hierarchy will continue its seamless function. The sea will rise and fall beneath the hull with patient constancy, and you, entrusted with the vessel's weight, will carry it not as burden, but as measured stewardship. Another link in the long, disciplined chain of captains who have guided ships across open water beneath gray British skies. The sea is no longer something you feel first through the soles of your boots. Now, it reaches you through paper. Through charts spread across a wide mahogany table in a quiet office overlooking a distant harbor, where ships lie at anchor in patient rows, their hulls rising and falling gently against the morning tide. The windows are tall, the glass faintly misted by the cool air drifting in from the water. Gulls wheel lazily above the masts, their calls softened by distance. Rear Admiral, later Vice Admiral. The braid upon your sleeve has grown broader, the insignia more intricate, yet your posture remains as it always was, upright, composed, unhurried. The sea still shapes your thoughts, even when you are no longer standing watch upon a bridge at midnight. You rise before dawn as you did at every rank before this one. A habit has become nature. The early light over the harbor is a muted silver, the surface of the water almost glass-like, reflecting the silhouettes of vessels under your command. Not one ship now, but many. Your responsibility has widened beyond a single deck. It stretches across fleets, across oceans, across decisions that ripple far beyond the immediate horizon. Yet there is nothing theatrical in this expansion. It is administrative, strategic, contemplative. You oversee movements not with shouted orders, but with measured directives signed in ink. You review reports compiled by captains whose judgment you trust. You listen more than you speak. The office carries a faint scent of polished wood and salt air. Portraits line the walls. Former admirals whose service spans centuries. Their gazes are steady, reflective rather than severe. You sense their presence not as pressure but as continuity. Aide-de-camp knocks gently before entering, delivering the morning's brief. You read in silence, absorbing information with practiced calm. Fleet readiness, rotational schedules, training assessments, minor logistical adjustments. No single entry demands drama. The Royal Navy endures through maintenance of standards, not spectacle. Later, in the operations room, a large chart table dominates the center of the space. Flags and markers denote positions of ships under your oversight. Lines trace routes across vast blue expanses. You step forward, fingertips resting lightly on the table's edge. You no longer feel the roll of a single hull beneath your feet. Instead, you sense patterns, currents of coordination, alignment of command structures, the careful distribution of leadership across distances measured in hundreds of nautical miles. Captains report to you. You remember vividly standing where they now stand, feeling the quiet gravity of stewardship. That memory tempers your tone during consultations. Maintain present rotation. You advise one over secure communication, your voice steady and unembellished. Ensure rest cycles remain balanced. Acknowledged, Admiral. The exchange is succinct. Trust flows both ways. By mid-morning, sunlight fills the harbor, glinting off rows of anchored vessels. From your office window you watch as one ship departs slowly, tugboats guiding her into open water. There is a gentle dignity in the movement. No urgency, only measured progression. As Rear Admiral, you first felt the abstraction of command, overseeing squadrons rather than compartments. As Vice Admiral, that abstraction deepens. You consider broader frameworks now. Long-term readiness, institutional cohesion, preservation of tradition across evolving generations. The sea remains your constant reference. In meetings, you speak sparingly. When you do, it is with clarity born of decades. Younger officers, newly promoted captains, seasoned commanders, listen attentively. They do not expect theatrics from you. They expect steadiness. You provide it. Afternoons often bring quiet intervals between consultations. During these moments, you walk along the harbor quay, coat collar turned slightly against the breeze. The scent of brine mingles with tar and rope. Sailors aboard moored ships glance toward you respectfully as you pass. You return their nods without flourish. Though your command now stretches across fleets, you remain deeply aware that the institution rests upon individual sailors. Junior ratings rising before dawn. Chief petty officers maintaining standards. Lieutenants standing watch beneath star-strewn skies. Hierarchy has expanded, but its foundation is unchanged. In the evening, the harbor darkens into deep indigo. Lanterns illuminate the decks of ships at anchor, small golden lights reflected in gentle ripples below. From your window, the scene resembles a constellation brought to water. You review correspondence beneath lamplight, policy adjustments, training initiatives, strategic considerations for months ahead. The language is measured, precise, free from ornament. Decisions at this level are rarely urgent, they are deliberate. A vice admiral must think in seasons rather than hours. You consider succession planning carefully, which captains demonstrate not only competence but composure, which commanders balance authority with humility. Your role is as much cultivation as command. The Royal Navy's future depends upon unseen shaping. Later still, when the building has quieted and footsteps fade along polished corridors, you pause beside a framed painting of an 18th-century vessel under full sail. The canvas captures no storm, no battle, only the steady progress of ship against horizon. You recognize that image intimately. Rank, at this stage, is less about personal distinction and more about guardianship of coherence. You ensure that fleets move in harmony, that standards remain consistent across distances too vast for any single voice to reach unaided. The sea outside continues its eternal rhythm against harbor walls. You open a window slightly, allowing the cool night air to enter. The scent of salt carries faintly upward. Somewhere in the darkness, a watch bell sounds from one of the anchored ships, marking the passage of time with traditional cadence. 8 bells. You close your eyes briefly, listening. Though you no longer stand watch upon a bridge, the sound resonates deeply within you. It is the same bell you once heard as a junior rating beneath open sky. The same rhythm that accompanied your years as lieutenant and captain. Nothing essential has changed. The scale has grown, but the heart remains. When at last you extinguish the lamp and prepare to retire, you look once more toward the harbor. Ships rest quietly, their masts etched against starlight. Crews settle into berths below deck, trusting the layered structure of command that extends upward to you, and beyond you still. For even a vice admiral answers to higher stewardship, an institution older and wider than any single fleet. You step back from the window. The sea, whether felt beneath boots or studied upon charts, continues its patient expanse. The tide is turning in the Thames, though from the tall windows of the Admiralty building it appears almost imperceptible. Only a subtle shift in the pattern of reflected light along the surface, a gentle alteration in the rhythm of moored vessels rising against their lines. You have been seated at the great desk for some time before dawn. The room is quiet in a way that feels older than silence. Polished wood panels line the walls, their grain darkened by centuries of lamplight. Portraits of admirals past regard you with composed expressions, their uniforms belonging to eras of sail, steam, steel, and turbine alike. The air carries a faint trace of paper, leather, and distant salt borne upriver from the sea. First Sea Lord. The title is spoken formally by others, but in the solitude of early morning, it feels less like elevation and more like custodianship. You are not commanding a single ship, nor even a fleet. You are guarding an inheritance. Outside, the sky over London is pale and muted, the color of brushed pewter. A thin mist lingers over the water, softening the outlines of bridges and embankments. Somewhere along the river, a gull calls, a reminder that even here, far from open ocean, the presence of the sea is never entirely absent. You rise from your chair and walk slowly across the carpeted floor, pausing before a large chart mounted upon the wall. It depicts not one theater, not one voyage, but the entire sweep of maritime responsibility encircling the globe. Oceans rendered in calm blue, shipping lanes traced in deliberate lines, naval bases marked with small, precise symbols. Your gaze moves across them unhurriedly. At this level, the sea is no longer something you navigate personally. It is something you safeguard collectively. The Royal Navy is older than any individual who leads it. Its traditions predate modern memory. Its customs were shaped by generations who stood watch under canvas sails and oil lamps, who polished brass fittings by hand and read sextants against starlight. You feel their continuity not as nostalgia, but as living presence. A knock at the door signals the beginning of the day's engagements. Briefings will follow, strategic overviews, personnel considerations, long-term readiness assessments. You will speak with ministers, with allied naval leaders, with senior officers whose voices carry across continents. Yet before the day unfolds, you allow yourself this quiet interval. You recall the sensation of a rope damp with salt in your palms. The first time you stood watch at night beneath an unbroken canopy of stars. The measured nod of a chief petty officer correcting your grip. The steady composure of a captain reviewing charts by lantern light. All of it converges here. Leadership at this height is less about direction and more about preservation. You sit once more at the desk and open a leather-bound volume. Records of policy, doctrine, institutional evolution. The language is precise, restrained. Decisions made decades ago echo forward into present structure. Your pen rests lightly against the page as you consider amendments, not radical shifts, but subtle refinements. The Royal Navy does not pivot abruptly, it adjusts with deliberation. Mid-morning light filters into the room, illuminating the gilt edging of frames and the faint sheen of polished brass fixtures. Footsteps echo softly along corridors outside. Staff members move with professional rhythm, their uniforms pressed, their demeanor composed. You meet with senior admirals in a conference room where maps stretch across an expansive table. Discussion is thoughtful, measured. Voices remain calm even when considering complex matters. There is no urgency in tone, only clarity. You listen more than you speak. When you do offer guidance, it is concise. Maintain continuity of training standards. Ensure mentorship pathways remain robust. Preserve the discipline that defines us. These are not dramatic edicts, they are reaffirmations of identity. In the afternoon, you walk briefly along the river embankment, coat buttoned against the cool breeze. The Thames flows steadily toward the sea, carrying with it echoes of centuries. Departures of ships bound for distant horizons, returns marked by quiet dignity rather than spectacle. You pause to watch a modern naval vessel glide beneath a bridge, her gray hull reflecting muted daylight. There is grace in her movement, just as there was in wooden frigates long ago. The materials have changed. The principle has not. Hierarchy remains intact. Junior ratings still rise before dawn. Leading hands still guide with patience. Warrant officers still uphold standards. Lieutenants still stand watch beneath night skies. Captains still bear the weight of a single ship. Admirals still coordinate fleets. And you, as First Sea Lord, ensure that this layered structure endures. Evening descends gradually, London's lights shimmering across the water. Back in your office, you review correspondence from Allied navies. measured exchanges of respect and cooperation. Maritime tradition binds nations as much as it distinguishes them. You reflect upon the concept of rank itself. From the most junior sailor to the highest admiral, rank is not an assertion of self. It is an alignment within a disciplined order. It provides clarity of responsibility, continuity of command, preservation of standards. Without hierarchy, there would be confusion. Without tradition, there would be drift. The Royal Navy is not defined solely by vessels or uniforms. It is defined by culture, by quiet authority, by composure in the face of vast horizons, by the understated pride carried in pressed fabric and polished brass. You stand once more at the window. Night has fallen fully now. The Thames reflects scattered lights like distant stars upon dark water. Somewhere beyond the city, beyond the estuary, beyond the curve of the earth, ships sail beneath open skies, their crews trusting in the institution you oversee. You imagine them briefly. A lieutenant adjusting course by a fraction of a degree. A chief petty officer inspecting equipment with patient scrutiny. A junior rating standing silent watch beneath moonlight. The sea continues, vast and unending. Rank ascends, but it also circles back. In quiet contemplation, you understand that leadership at this height is not about prominence. It is about guardianship of something enduring. You are but one custodian in a lineage that stretches backward through centuries and forward into futures unseen. The tide outside continues its slow, deliberate movement toward open water. You extinguish the lamp upon your desk, allowing the room to settle into soft darkness. The portraits along the walls fade into shadow, yet their presence remains. The Royal Navy endures not through spectacle, but through steadiness, through discipline carried gently, through hierarchy understood as structure, not superiority, through the quiet hum of engines at sea and the whisper of wind along wooden decks long past. And as you stand there, listening to the distant murmur of river against stone, you sense that the institution itself is like the ocean, vast, patient, timeless. A continuum of duty, a lineage of calm authority, a legacy carried forward on the steady breath of the sea.